Welcome to Fifth and State, your inside look at everything Garland, unscripted. Join Mayor Dylan Hedrick and City Manager Judson Rex as they dive into the topics shaping our city. Let's get started.
Hello, Garland. I'm Mayor Dylan Hedrick.
And I'm City Manager Judd Rex.
We recently launched this new podcast, Fifth and State. We're excited to share our first official episode with you. Last time we gave you an introduction, kind of prepping you, but now we're really getting into the meat of it.
The meat of it and the money of it.
The meat
That's where
and
we're
the money.
out.
Exactly. Tackling a big topic this week with our budget.
Yeah, it's budget season, not like hunting season, where you put on an orange vest, but this is more like a green vest for money.
Well, it seems like we're always in budget season, though. It's nonstop cycle.
It is. Actually, it is in Garland because we do CIP mid-year, too, so it kind of is.
Yeah,
Very
but
true.
we'll get into all that eventually. But first, I want to know really, how did you land up here in this position as city manager? How did you get to Garland? What brought you from wherever you were all the way down to Texas?
All the way. That is all the way, too. So I've been in Texas now for 11 years. Before I came to Garland, I was just up the road in Denison. Was city manager there for about 6 years. And then I found Brian Bradford, the previous city manager, and he brought me on just before retirement. Spent a couple years as assistant city manager, and I guess I was in the good graces of the city council, and they said, "Hey, let's give Judd a chance at this," and just been hitting the road since. This is fantastic.
Well, hitting the road. We hope you stay here for a little while. We want to keep you around for a little bit there. A big part of what you do every time is looking at the budget, and it's interesting because Garland has two separate budget processes that we go through.
Yeah, it's a little different. Most cities put together a budget that has their operating funds and their capital funds kind of all in one. But for a long time, Garland's had a separate capital plan that we do, kind of starting at the first of the calendar year. And then at the beginning of the fiscal year, October 1st, I know that was one of the questions we got from residents was, hey, when is your budget process? When does this fiscal year start? And October 1st is it. We're October 1st to September 30th. I don't know why that is, but every city in Texas does it.
It must have something to do with state law, I'm sure, like everything else we do. But, yeah, that's one question we got. What are the fiscal year of Garland? Well, this resident also wanted to know what is the budgeting process. And I know we always start way early. This year we're having a work session coming up very soon to start talking about the budget. At our work session that's coming up this coming Monday, you're going to release the budget for the first time for City Council to see.
Yeah. Yep. So August 4th, usually the first Monday in August is when we kind of hand the budget over to the City Council, and that kicks the City Council process off and the public hearings and everything that come along with that. But rewind many, many months, and all the departments at the city start to put their budget together, usually around March, April time frame, and then we start to review everything and look through it, and really leading up to another workshop that we usually do, which is in June. Kind of do the pre-budget workshop with City Council and talk high level about things. So leading up to that, we get a lot of information from all our different departments, and that's what ends up in the budget, but gives us a good chance to engage early with the council on as far as what we're seeing with revenue and how things are shaping up for the budget. So we start off with that budget workshop too, and then we do another one in August.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know the first thing I notice when I get the budget is how big it is. Last year it was 614 pages in a huge binder.
Yeah, so it's great if you really want to fall asleep. And I wish there was a cool way for us to translate all that and make it more understandable and stuff. But that's really why we're here, right? Is to try to interpret all the 614 pages of the budget.
And that's what I wanted to know. We break our budget. It's an operating budget and a capital improvement budget. And we first take a look at the operating budget, and that's really all the salaries and the stuff we do. And the capital improvement budget is all the stuff we buy.
Yeah. So, and that was a question that got asked too, was like, all right, how did we pay for all these bond projects? And How did we build the new central library and renovate that? And then, we have to operate those facilities too. And that's how the money breaks down is we have a bucket of money essentially for people and operations and equipment. And that's one budget that we're putting together right now. But as far as the source of money for all the things we build, that's the capital budget that happens in January. Of course, it's all funded by the taxpayers. It all comes through there. I should say taxpayers and ratepayers, because a big part of our budget is that we have not only what we call the general fund, and that's where when you pay taxes, your property taxes, when you go to the store, you buy something, and sales taxes, that all goes into the general fund. But in reality, you also pay, if you're a GP&L customer, you're paying GP&L. If you're a water customer or a sanitation customer, you're paying those fees too. That all goes into the budget, and you add up all those budget numbers, and you get to what our proposed budget for 2026 is actually $1.1 billion.
That's billion with a B, right?
B, and
yes.
So it's a big number. That's a big number, and for those that are balancing their personal budgets. It probably doesn't come with a B after it. And so like you think about the context of that, it's a big number. This is a big city. It's a big organization. It's a big budget.
And one thing when I'm looking at my personal budget too, I don't have all the funds that this budget, a city budget has. There's governmental funds, there's proprietary funds, general fund, special revenue fund, other governmental funds. Why do we have so many funds?
Well, we do a lot of different things. We do all the sort of general government stuff, and I mentioned the general fund earlier. That's kind of where all the general government stuff flows through. So all of our kind of core services, and really what makes up most of the general fund is public safety. It's police, fire, it's animal services, it is our planning and development. All of those things that you think of when you think about a city government, what they do, it's like that's the general fund. And all the other stuff that you mentioned there, again, GP&L has its own fund. We have an electric fund. We have a water and wastewater fund. We have a sanitation fund, and those are self-supporting. And so, like when the city council sets the sanitation rates, it's based on what does it cost us to deliver this service, to pick up trash from every house. What does it cost us to do that? And then that's what establishes the rate for that service. And so general fund is, all your taxes come in. It goes to public safety and your general government stuff. And then all these other funds are based off of rates that customers pay, that citizens pay into those funds. And they're self-supporting. We're not profiting from that in any way. This is about a balanced budget to cover the cost of that service, and that's what that looks like.
And it was interesting to me in that general fund, public safety makes up the biggest part of that. And public safety, that's your police, fire, health department, emergency management, animal services, all of that. That's over half. I think it's closer to 60% or so.
Yeah, it's about 2/3 just goes to public safety. And an interesting thing I like to share with residents is that if you add up all the property taxes and all the sales taxes that we get, you still don't cover what it costs to pay for public safety. And so just that kind of puts things in context that, for those that think we're bilking them out of millions and millions of dollars, all of those revenues, sales tax and property tax, still don't quite cover public safety. And so we rely on a lot of other things too. That an example in the general fund is our landfill. So we run a regional landfill that makes up part of our general fund. And so other cities that maybe take their trash to the landfill, that helps support those services that Garland residents get. So it's a unique thing about Garland. Not every city has a landfill, and that really helps support our residents in the end.
Mm-hmm. And I was looking at all the different funds we have, and we have some special revenue funds. There are TIF funds, and there are narcotic seizure fund, hotel motel tax fund. It's all these little buckets of money that we're restricted on what we can do with that money.
It's, a lot of those funds come with restrictions for sure. You think about the seizure funds that have to go towards certain things. TIF is a word that we hear a lot during budget season because what the heck is a TIF? Mm-hmm. It sounds like, I don't even know what TIF sounds like.
I have a sister-in-law named Tiffany. It's not her though. Yeah, it's TIF, tax increment finance.
Yeah, and we have 3 TIFs, and they cover certain parts of Garland. TIF is a tool that we use for economic development, and it doesn't bring in new money, meaning that if you're in a TIF, it's not like you pay a special tax. You're just paying your normal property tax. We siphon those funds off into a special fund to help out with projects. And I think downtown Garland is the best example of that. We have TIF number 1, which is downtown. And part of what helped pay for those improvements in the downtown district on the square was TIF number 1, money that had been set aside for a long time. TIF number 1's been around for 20 years, actually, a little more than 20 years. So there are definitely some unique aspects to our budget, lots of different buckets of money that are available.
Mm-hmm. And it's always interesting when we look at our budget, where do our revenue sources come from, right? So talked a little bit about, you said property tax and sales tax, and that is just a portion of it and won't even cover all of our public safety expenses.
Yeah. So in the general fund, 4 biggest fund sources, we got property tax, sales tax, landfill revenue. I mentioned the landfill and how that helps. That's kind of a unique way for us to help support the services of the city. And then we have some funds that come from GP&L. So this is, I like to think about Garland's unique that it has an electric, essentially an electric company, GP&L. But Garland residents who are part of GP&L pay rates into GP&L for electricity, which, by the way, are very, very competitive rates. I live in Garland, but I live in Encore territory, and I wish I was a GP&L customer.
Oh, you're missing out. Those GP&L rates are great. Like during the summer when it's 100 degrees outside, and I look at my bill, it's still high, but it's not nearly as high as what other people are paying.
Yes. GP&L customers are getting a very good deal, and so we help return back to the ratepayers and the residents of Garland from GP&L to help support the services of the city. And if GP&L was a private organization with shareholders, it's really a way to pay a dividend back to the shareholders or the residents of Garland. And so those are our 4 biggest sources in the general fund as far as revenue goes.
I always tell people the city is like a big conglomerate corporation. We do so many different things here. We have GP&L, which provides us a revenue stream for people purchasing electricity or transmission. We have that landfill that you mentioned, Hinton Landfill, where we accept other people's trash from other cities. They're giving us a revenue stream as well. Those alone, that's about 20% of our revenue that we receive. And if we didn't have those, it would be really difficult.
It would. And I know we talk with the council a lot, Mayor, about Garland's challenge. And, what Garland's challenge is we're a very modest community, meaning that our per capita property tax and sales tax revenue is well below average. And so if, we do this analysis every year at that June pre-budget workshop, and the number's up to $90 million a year now. So if we were just average as far as revenue goes for property tax and sales tax, we would have another $90 million per year to go toward, reducing the tax rate, services, whatever.
Hiring more first responders.
There you go. And that's $90 million is a lot. The total general fund's $250 million, so we're talking, about a third of the general fund that we'd have extra. So having the landfill, having GP&L helps close that gap about $45 million. Half of that 90 we kind of knock off because we have the landfill and GP&L. We're still short. We're still below average when it comes to revenue, and so we run lean. We're a frugal, modest city, as I like to say.
Well, and one thing that goes into that is when we look at what revenue is required to run the city, we have to also look how then do we set our tax rate appropriately to keep all the processes going. And something I'm very proud of that we have not raised our taxes in Garland while I've been on council, except for one time when the voters approved it due to the 2019 bond program. But can you go in, how do we set our tax rate? How is it set? If we needed more revenue, what would we do to increase, or even if we wanted to decrease our tax rate, how would we go about that?
Boy, that's a journey. That's a can of worms because it's very complicated. And I met with our CFO and our budget director yesterday talking about this specifically because we finally got, so at the end of July, we get from a DCAD, the Dallas Central Appraisal District, final tax values, and that we await for that day like year round, because it's kind of the final test of, okay, how's the budget going to look?
Is that like Christmas Day for the finance people?
It
to finally
absolutely
get to open
is.
their presents?
There were carols going down the hallway. It was straight up Christmas.
I saw
Day.
someone dressed like an elf. Yeah, it's
Christmas Day comes. We look at what the property tax base did, and this year we're looking at about a 5.6% increase. Sounds like a lot, but when it comes to our rate, so there's two buckets of money that the property tax goes into. There's one that's for operations and maintenance, so that's all the people that run the city. That's our police, fire, everybody that works for the city. That's where that money goes.
That's that first operating budget you were talking about first,
yes,
right?
Yep,
Right, that's what we're going to see
side.
next week.
That's what we're digging into now. And then the other side is debt service, like the things that you were mentioning. How do we pay for the improvements and the capital expenses? And so if you pay $1 into your property taxes, it's kind of, it's not 50-50, it's pretty close, but half goes to operations, half goes to capital. And the operations side, here's the trick and where it gets difficult. That operations side, even though our tax base grew 5.6%, the state legislature passed a bill, Senate Bill 2, years ago, that says we can only capture 3.5% of that. And so when you talk about, you mentioned before, our tax rate going down, that's how it's gone down, is that we're capped at 3.5% growth in revenue for the operations rate. And so
just go over that one more time. So we grew by 5.6%. Our property tax values grew that much year over year, but we're only allowed to capture 3.5% due to Senate Bill 2 from 2019.
Yes, that's correct. So, it used to be 8%. Pre-SB2, it was 8% you could grow without going to the voters or adjusting your rate down. It's 3.5% now, which really gets difficult when there's inflation and other things.
And that bill came in 2019, and we know since 2019 to now, we went through some significant inflationary periods.
For sure. Yeah, it was post-COVID. I mean, inflation is the hot topic, right? And we're seeing it flare back up again. It kind of calmed down a little bit. 2025, 2024, but
so what back. Then do you, as a city manager, when you're setting the budget and you see all these pressures, this inflation going up, we have we can only raise it by 3.5%. What do we do? Do we look to cut stuff? Do we not include stuff? Do we defer stuff? What happens?
Yeah, it's a balancing act, and this year in particular was difficult because Garland has had some good years in the last 4 or 5 years. Sales tax has grown considerably, and so sales tax is not capped. If residents, visitors, when you're buying stuff in Garland, there's a sales tax that comes back to the city, and that's
it's not just
capped.
In Garland, right? It's if you're buying on Amazon online, but
yes,
you live in Garland,
which
right?
like Amazon's the best thing ever because we get to capture that sales tax revenue now.
Mm-hmm.
Please buy lots of stuff on Amazon or at Home Depot in Garland.
Yes.
But yes, we capture that now. And Amazon's our number one sales tax remitter or payer now. So that's huge. And so our sales tax has grown a lot. How we've balanced the budget really the last 4 or 5 years is growth in sales tax. We've been able to keep up with that inflation, but that's gone now. Sales tax is kind of plateaued. And in particular this year, we told council in June we're starting out about $4 million in the hole in the general fund, and so we had to close that gap, and that looks like a lot of different things have to be done there, and to close that gap, and that's where it gets difficult to balance the budget.
So let's move on and talk a little bit about the CIP budget. So CIP is Capital Improvement Program.
Yes, that is made up of a lot of projects. So we like to use acronyms around here, and CIP is one of them that we throw out a lot.
How do we go about doing that? I know that's a little bit later in the year. Really, at the beginning of next year is when we look at that.
That's the fun one.
That's really Christmas.
I know council enjoys that one more. It's the fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We got a whole binder. It's probably 614 pages like the other budget, but it's all projects, all the fun stuff. It's trails, it's parks, it's the square downtown. All the things that got voted on in these bond elections end up in the CIP. And
I'm like a kid. It's like a new fire truck I get to unwrap for Christmas. I get to see a bright new fire truck, But it's interesting. Talk about some of the things that we do. You mentioned a couple, we're doing new recreation centers. We're doing new libraries. Also, and there's roads and equipment too.
Yeah. So all the street maintenance, the improvements, street improvements, anything on this stuff's not as exciting, but pipes under the ground. We have lots of infrastructure to maintain. Like that's all capital. It requires a lot of money to maintain and take care of and replace. And then you'd bring GP&L into the mix, and there's transmission lines, distribution lines, substations. It's a lot of things that are packed into that capital budget. And the one of the paradoxes that we have to deal with now with SB2 is that we have a cap. We talked about the cap on our operations rate, right? 3.5% growth. Well, the other bucket, which is the capital bucket, there's no cap on. And so if I'm a resident of Garland right now, I think, well, gosh, we had a 2019 bond, we had a 2025 bond. The city's like spending all this money.
So it's like a credit card without a spending limit then.
As long as the tax base is growing, that bucket is still growing. But then the tricky part is, well, how do we operate all these things? When we open the new rec center or surf and swim next year, it's like, well, that's going to hit the other bucket, which is capped. And so that's where it gets tricky because we have to balance those things out. And so, again, if I'm a resident, I'm thinking, well, the city's got all this money to build all these things, but how are they doing this? And then we we're going to tell council we got a really tight budget on the operation side, and we may have to go to the voters next year to make some adjustments to the tax rate. And so it's like this. It's kind of confusing. If I'm a resident, I would legitimately be confused about that. But that's just how it's set up. That is how it's set up.
I can give you a concrete example. I knew Holford Recreation Center and the pool open. That pool is much bigger than our old pool, so you have to have a lot more lifeguards staffing it. The center itself is probably twice as big as the old one, a lot more staff working there, and we got to pay all those people to work there.
Yeah, that's a perfect example, and the same will happen with the surf and swim, the new senior center downtown. These are improved facilities, and so I almost joke sometimes that it's easier to build it than it is to operate and maintain it as far as financially. What was it, $40 million for Holford? Well, we're spending over $1 million a year to operate it and maintain it, and so you have to factor that into. Mm-hmm. It gets difficult,
and that goes into the consideration on how much we charge for admission in the pool and memberships and all that.
Yeah, and that's we have gotten comments about that on Holford Pool that. I think it's $8 a day to get in, but it's beautiful. I mean, what a great facility! It
just goes into the philosophy of whether it should be a public amenity, but still we have to operate at the same time, and we want to be able to run it. But these are not profit centers necessarily for us, but we want to make them available to anyone to use. We still have to try to cover our costs.
Yeah, and it's tricky. And I think, Mayor, this is where I would ask a good question for you from the decision-making side of it, because you're trying to balance that out. Okay, we charge, people pay taxes, sales taxes, property taxes, and then we're going to charge them when they get into the rec center too. Like, how do you balance that out from a decision-maker standpoint and setting policy for the city? Because that's tricky, that's difficult.
It's always tricky when you're also competing with the free market at the same time. We have great we have Hawaiian Waters, which is a big theme park, and I see how much they pay. Well, what value can the city provide in our facilities that maybe you're not getting as much as Hawaiian Waters, all the slides and all that stuff? We still have great things at Holford Pool, but we want to undercut them a little bit because we want to be a public facility and open to anyone who may not be able to afford that higher rate that they charge at Hawaiian Waters.
So it kind of becomes accessibility, inclusivity.
It's a public
factor.
Amenity, right? Yeah. But then you run into the issue of if it's free, then would people appreciate it as much and take care of it, and would it be overrun? And a lot of other issues come into play.
Yeah, so a little bit of ownership almost with that minimal fee to get in and use a facility.
Right, exactly. I mean, people are expected to be charged something, I would imagine, but we want to keep all of our rates reasonable so they keep coming back and using our facilities.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Again, I think the important thing in a budget process and working through that is you got the political perspective that you're talking about, and the numbers are the numbers, but how do we balance that out? And I think that's always a challenge for councils, because you don't want to raise fees to the point where you prohibit people from going. It's not accessible, but at the same time we got to operate it, and we don't, for those the whole tax base is paying for it, but you want the user to have a little bit of ownership in it.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I'm always amazed by is people come up to me and ask, why can't we just buy this? The city has so much money. Why can't we just rebuild this road right in front of my house?
Yeah.
Or why can't we just open a new facility? Or, but the truth of it is, and just seeing going through 6 and now going to be 7 budget cycles, there's just not much around the edges that we really can decide to do new things with, or buy shiny new things, or even hire 5 more staff members, for example.
Yeah, Garland is a modest city, and so I think that we're very budget conscious, and we've had some really good years, and so that's helped carry us, and we've done what we can, but that's not always going to be the case. You ride the wave as long as you can, and then go from there.
Yeah. So when we're looking at our different budgets, we can't take our operating budget and put it towards our capital improvement budget, can we?
Yeah. So those 2 buckets of money that come in from property taxes, we can't bend the rules on that. The legislature and a lot of other rules really restrict what we can do with funds. So on the capital side, that's not restricted, that has no cap, we can't pay salaries with that. We can't purchase certain equipment and do maintenance activities with it. It's got to go to projects, big projects.
So if we wanted to change that balance of those two, do we have to take it to the voters, or council just say, you know what, we're going to shift a little money this year?
Yeah, no, it's got to go to the voters above a certain point, and that may be another episode to dig into in preparation for next year. But yeah, it's got to go to the voters. If we want to go above that 3.5% operation increase, it's got to go to the voters. So again, the paradox here is that we have kind of a bucket of money that's unlimited. Not totally, but as long as the tax base is growing, we have capital funds to build things. But then, the message that I think, we tell staff and we tell the public is that we have a tight budget. And we do. It's like this paradox of we can build a lot of things and make improvements because the legislature hasn't capped that side of the tax rate. But the other side's really tight. And so when it comes to paying people and delivering services and maintaining things, it's very tight. We're capped at 3.5% growth, and it's kind of confusing.
But we just got a big infusion of cash, right? With a bond program, we passed $360 million.
We did, and that's going to help out with a lot of capital projects and economic development.
But that infusion of cash, we can't again use that for operating expenses. That's more buying things, improvements to our city. But we can't use it to pay salaries.
Exactly. It's that's what makes this so difficult. And frankly, it's kind of confusing to residents that we said yes, we voted yes, overwhelmingly, which is great, and we can build things. It's the operation side of it that's tough. And
we'll have a brand new Granville Arts Center very soon, but we still have to have staff to staff it.
Yeah. That's the schools deal with the same thing. GISD, I know, is dealing with the same challenge. They have a big bond program they passed a couple years ago, but I know they're talking about going to the voters for a tax rate increase too. It's the same challenge that they have.
Just like the city budget, their highest expense is salaries.
Yeah, teachers, administrators, it's all there.
So Garland's challenge is something we talk about frequently. I know I've written a lot about it on my Substack, and it's just the fact that Garland's sales tax revenue per capita and our property tax value is lower than surrounding cities. So having those two disadvantages brings in less revenue per capita, which allows us to do less as a city because we don't have as much funds to work with.
Yeah, if you think about it, we have to provide the same services that all the other cities in the Metroplex do. And so how do we do it? And part of Garland's challenge is that we have a little bit higher tax rate than some of those cities because their average home prices are higher, their home values are higher. They have more sales tax revenue. That's, if you even look at our close neighbor, which is actually a smaller city, Richardson, they have more sales tax revenue than we do. And so level that across per capita, population wise, we're way below average.
So to get the same amount of revenue, they're spending more per capita, and their houses are worth more per capita, which allows them to have a lower tax rate. But for Garland, where we're upside down as far as those two are concerned, we have to have our higher tax rate to get that same amount of revenue to run the same city services that they would.
You nailed it. That's Garland's challenge.
Well, let's hit a few questions now. I know we got a few questions about our budget from online. I'd love to answer a few of them before we close out this podcast. But do you have a good one you see over there?
There's one that refers to Proposition B from the 2025 bond election, which was, of course, economic development. And so can we use that to build a hospital for residents of Garland?
I'd love to take a shot at that one. I know we could use some of that to entice someone to come build a hospital for us. But as far as the city wanting to build and operate their own hospital, that kind of goes back to the discussion we had about every time we build a new facility, we have to operate it. So if we built a hospital, would we want to be in the hospital business now?
Yeah, cool, because you have Parkland that's in the hospital business now on the public side, but then there's a lot of private hospitals too. And I think Council's intention with that Proposition B was to, what can we do to help attract a hospital? Not necessarily us be the ones that build it and operate it, but is there a private entity we could partner with, public or private entity, I should say, that we can use some of those Proposition B dollars to help attract a hospital? Because I don't know if it's true. I have not fact-checked this, but apparently we're the largest city in the country without a hospital. And I think that is something that our residents care about. And Proposition B is going to give us some tools to be able to see if we can solve that problem.
Certainly want to look at a hospital, but other things we can attract here with that money. We got a bucket of $75 million from that proposition, that hospitals and new places to shop, new places to eat, anything like that.
Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
Trader Joe's comes up a lot. Like, everybody wants a Trader Joe's in Garland, and I get it. That would be awesome. But we have a war chest now to help us with that economic development work that's needed to bring those restaurants and retail and whatever else to Garland.
Mm-hmm. One other question I saw was an interesting one. It says, before a rate increase occurs, do we do an internal audit to see if that rate increase is really needed, or how do we go about determining what we're going to charge extra for our services? Yeah,
and I think the question asks about, because it's a good example, stormwater fee. So residents on their bill have a stormwater fee, and it's like, well, did we inspect that and really dig into what that? And I think that's kind of what they're asking is, do we really dig into things before we increase rates? And yes. And
I'd say one thing is, please watch our budget discussions. A lot of this comes up during our discussion. We frequently compare ourselves to surrounding cities. Are we at the median? Are we a little higher? Are we a little lower than our surrounding peer cities that we make a comparison to? And for a long time, specifically regarding the stormwater fees, we've been lower than everyone. Now we have a plan to try to gradually increase that over years so you don't get a shock all at once on your bill. But we want to bring in more revenue using that stormwater fee to pay for improvements to stormwater and flooding issues, correct those.
Yeah, great. We do that with a lot of our fees. Look at our comparison cities across the Metroplex. That's a big factor. I know the council looks at is we know we're a modest community. Where are we at in the region when it comes to our fees? That's important.
Yep.
We have a lot of stormwater opportunities in Garland, a long list of improvements, and stuff's just expensive, and we want to be able to tackle those issues that are in the community.
Mm-hmm. And we hope that you will come and give us some comments on our episode. I'd love for you to comment on YouTube or Spotify. Check us out on Apple Podcast. Comment on our Facebook page or Instagram page. You can catch us at garlandtx.gov on Instagram, or the city Facebook page, City of Garland, Texas Government. Make sure you find that. There's a lot of Garland pages out there, but we are the official government page at City of Garland, Texas Government. So we'll be releasing this podcast and many future episodes on that one as well.
Yeah, look forward to it, Mayor. This has been great.
Look great, and looking forward to the next episode.
All right.
Good night, Garland.